So this one is going to be a little bit on the informal side of things up here on the rooftop here in Panama City, Panama. What I'm going to do is I have my notes and I'm going to walk through what it's like owning both of these two incredible phones. Luckily, we've had the 11 Pro since day one and the Xperia 1 Mark II since, more or less day one as well. And I've been jumping back and forth between the two. So these are my opinions on what it's like owning these two as daily drivers. And also we're going to look at which one you should choose if you're truly open-minded and would consider going to either ecosystem here, to either operating system. Which one should you consider getting, especially now that we're on the verge of having the the 12 Pro come in. So let's look at this now. So in terms of the design specifically, let's concentrate on the design now and look at some of the differences here. Now for me, the obvious starting point here with the design is that the iPhone is going for a more, I've got to be careful what I say here because I'm genuinely not trying to upset anyone. It is going for a slightly more prestige look, a more blingy kind of look, slightly more kind of jewelry-esque in the way that it's presented. And it's heavier as well. Now 99.9% of all tech journalists will tell you that's really good, it's heavy and that's therefore premium. I think it's not an argument that I buy into at all. I much prefer the Sony approach when it comes to that. It's much lighter and I like the way that the design sort of gets out of the way of the content. So when you watch content back on the Sony Xperia 1 Mark II, there's no punch hole, there's no notch. It's all about full respect for the content. The design itself, it kind of gets itself out of the way. I really like that approach. It's not a blingy design at all, it's very understated. They're two entirely different approaches. On that one, I have to say I prefer the Xperia approach. Beyond that, of course, we have the USB Type-C on the Xperia 1 Mark II. It's the Lightning port, of course, the proprietary approach on the iPhone. I mean, we've all got our own opinions on that. If you're already fully into the Apple ecosystem, that's not going to worry you at all. I do prefer the versatility of having the USB Type-C. Headphone jack, that's another big difference here on the design of these two phones. Given the choice of having one or not having one, of course, like I think most people, I could be wrong, but I think most people, I prefer having the headphone jack there. Now, Johnny Ive, who some people think I sound like, was a big fan, I think, of those curved edges that you get on the iPhone. I never liked them. I find the iPhone more difficult to hold. I prefer the flatter edges, which is another reason why I'm excited about the 12 Pro. Apparently we're going back to the kind of iPhone 5, 5S design with the flat edges, which I love. I'm excited about that. Notification light on the Xperia 1 Mark II. I really, really like having a notification light. I wish the iPhone had one. But one thing I do like, I mean, I'm not a fan of the notch, but what I do like about what is inside the notch is face unlock. Is the fingerprint scanner really good on the Xperia 1 Mark II? It is, but I do enjoy face unlock on the iPhone when it works, which I have to say, for me is about 98% of the time. It's just brilliant. The last thing I want to say about the design here with these two phones is the size overall. I love the fact that the Sony gives you, as I've said before in my other videos, a big screen, big phone experience, but without the drawbacks of a big phone. It's light, that aspect ratio 21:9 really works for me. The problem I had with the iPhone is I find the Max is just too big. I love it. I love the impact of watching content on there, but it's too big as a daily driver for me. Whereas I found that the standard Pro model was too small. You know what I mean? I think the Xperia 1 Mark II has the sweet spot there in terms of screen and day-to-day use not being too cumbersome. Okay, so I'm here in my Panamanian football shirt the day after the video was filmed that you're watching now, because I forgot to say, there's the dog, I forgot to say two important things. One is that the front-facing camera on the iPhone 11 Pro is just better. It's just way, way better. And in my view, that's too important not to say, which is why I'm saying it now. I forgot yesterday, sorry. The other thing is that the global warranty you get when you buy direct from Apple is just insanely good. I love the fact that I can be in any country and I can get pretty much top-notch service and support wherever I am. I just love that. That's not something we will get here, or we do get with the Xperia 1 Mark II. That's all I wanted to say. Carry on with the video. I hope you enjoy it. Bye. So we have run a test comparing the displays of the Sony Xperia 1 Mark II and the iPhone 11 Pro, and we felt that overall the Sony wins. The Sony wins because of the clarity. We did the test using creator mode. In fact, we tried a whole ton of different settings, but overall, yeah, the Sony wins. And it's a convincing win, by the way. The speakers, again, we did an audio test, and we felt that the iPhone presented the treble, the kind of higher frequencies there a little better, but overall, in terms of the general sound quality, we much preferred the Xperia 1 Mark II. In terms of battery life, which is the next segment here, I wanted to just steam through. Both phones will easily get you through a day, and they're very, very similar on battery life. And the only thing I would say is that Sony does have that approach to preserving the battery for the long term, which I really like. We're going to talk about longevity later in the video, because that's a really important factor here if you're thinking of buying one of these two phones, or the new 12 Pro perhaps. So just quickly here on the build quality, I think both of these devices are just incredibly well built. They are both, for me, as good as it gets on that side of things. Not remotely worried about that. So I think we can just chalk that one up as a draw and happy days. We could do a totally separate video on the camera technology here, the differences between the two phones, the different results, and it would have to be an entirely separate video because it's such an in-depth topic. But what I will say, while I put these photographs up on the screen now for you to see that we've taken with both phones, is that we are talking about two different approaches. Generally speaking, as we've said before in our Xperia 1 Mark II videos, the approach from Sony here is about encouraging us as users to get into Pro mode and really enjoy that process. Auto mode on the Sony, I would like to see it improved. I think it can be improved. I think that's a reasonable request. In terms of, point and shoot, for me the iPhone edges it, but in terms of wanting to get into Pro mode, obviously the Sony wins. However, let's not forget that Filmic Pro, other apps do exist if you want to take that approach with the iPhone. For me, I'm not even going to say there's a winner or loser here. I think that would be a bit silly. I think it's okay to just say you pick the colors, the approach, the warmth that you prefer, and you go with that. Is that fair to say? Let me know in the comments below. Next, now it gets a little bit tasty, because now we're going to talk about things like privacy and security. And what I hope is that we can have this discussion in the comments, like always, without anyone getting too bent out of shape. But respectfully, I am going to challenge some of Apple's positions here when it comes to privacy and security. By the way, I hope you like it, because what we're doing is we're moving around the rooftop here, trying to show you as much of the city as we can. We're still under really strict lockdown conditions here, so as you may have noticed if you follow us, if you're not following us, please do. We want to get out and show you the city. We will be able to soon. We're just waiting for the restrictions to be eased. Anyway, so while I'm talking, enjoy the scenery behind me. Apple, privacy. They've been really pushing that hard lately, haven't they? I have a few friends in the USA, and they are big iPhone fanatics. And they tell me the reason is because of privacy. Now, I would argue that if you have an iPhone, or any phone for that matter, and you put a load of Facebook stuff on there, you're probably zucked. And I think the same is true if you load a load of Amazon stuff on there. You're equally zucked, I would put it to you. If you're really serious about privacy, you probably don't want to go too far with either of those two companies. Again, I don't want to go crazy here. I don't want to upset anyone, but I'm just putting this forward as a suggestion. The other thing, of course, is that iPhone users say to me, Google's really bad, it's really evil, and all that kind of stuff. I take that with a pinch of salt, because if you do buy an iPhone and you load up Safari and you get going there, what's the search engine that comes preloaded? Well, it's Google, isn't it? If Apple, I put this to you as a question, if Apple is truly serious about privacy and it's not just marketing, would they not load DuckDuckGo as the search engine of choice as default? Just a thought. The other thing, of course, is that my American friends adore Apple Maps, and it is wonderful in America, especially in the cities, and it's, I believe, pretty good in London now, in the UK, where I'm from. But out here, trying to use Apple Maps, it's like you're looking at the moon. Like there's nothing there, there's no public transport, you can't use it from get to A to B. It just tells you that it's just not possible. So I have to use Google Maps, and some people say, well, you know, I use Waze. Well, that's great, but let's not forget Google owns Waze. So this whole thing about privacy, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because it's easy to kind of get lost in all the information that's out there. All I'm saying is it's not clear cut. So if privacy is a major thing for you, iPhone could be the way to go, but just be careful about what you put on there, because for me, it's a minefield trying to work out which approach is better. Does that help? Probably not, but anyway, there we go, let's move on. And just lastly on security, I do feel, having said all of that, that when it comes to security, I just feel I've got nothing to back this up, but slightly safer with Apple stuff, generally speaking. I'm curious to know if you feel the same way or not, but anyway. Now, what have we got here next? Longevity. This is one area where Apple still reigns, in my opinion, because when you buy a new iPhone, you can pretty much bet your bottom dollar that you're going to get really good support for 5 years to come. Yes, they got into a bit of trouble there with the battery, you know, slowing everything down. Generally speaking though, you're going to get 5 years of support. It's very difficult to find that with Android devices. However, what I will say is that it's improving on the Android side generally. We've had some good news from Samsung recently regarding 3 operating system updates on the flagships, and I read literally just a few days ago that some leaked documents from Sony show that they too are going down the same route. You're going to get 3 OS updates on the new flagships. So I'm going to put a link in the description below to that news story, because that's really significant here. In terms of hardware, they're both equally well built. It's just that software support, I think it's fair to say Apple still edges it. Now, a massive factor when it comes to choosing which one of these phones, which one of these manufacturers might be the right route for you, is going to be the ecosystem. And there's not a huge amount I can add to that other than I mean, again, it's a whole separate video, isn't it? Once you're into an ecosystem, it's a little bit tough, isn't it, to shift. Is it still worth shifting? Well, for what it's worth, the more of an open mind I think we as consumers can keep, the better it's going to be for us. When it comes to choosing between Android and iOS, I think it's fair to say, certainly from my experience, there used to be a big difference. Now there really isn't. iOS still isn't quite as customizable as I would like, but generally speaking, it's such a similar experience in so many ways. I'm just going to leave that one open. So there are some really big corporations in the like tech publications in the UK, and they tend to score everything 4 out of 5. Both of these phones I've seen 4 out of 5. I mean, that's great, but I think we can do better, because what does that mean if everything's 4 out of 5? So we have a new scoring system here at BTEKT. It's from 0 to 50, or is it 500 million? I can't remember. We have a bit more room to play with, is what I'm saying. I hope you like it. Here is our final score for these 2 phones. As you can probably see, there is a storm fast approaching just over my shoulder here, so we're going to wrap this up. Thank you to everyone who has liked and subscribed here at BTEKT. I love reading your comments, so does Andres, the whole team here. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.